Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another reading with Listen with Vobes. I hope you're all doing well. Just getting myself organised here. It's another funny old day out there in the real world, but out here in the Vobosphere, it's all right. We are reading the new book called The Peep Show. Now, not to be confused with the Sussex Peep Show of a similar name, which we wrote, which we didn't write, which we read some weeks ago now, last year, in fact, by Walter Wilkinson. And this is the first book of that name and series, rather. And it's a very good book. Thank you. Now, out there in the Vobosphere, we have the lovely Julia. Hello to you. A Turbo Stream, Justine Jones, Guten Tag, Guten Tag. Holly and Co, Philip Hammond and Mary, Martin Cannon, hello from Lyon. Ah, Lyon, it's so nice to be in Lyon. Oui, the Lyon corner shop and the Lyon ice cream. Billabong O'Neill, hello to you. Jen Colley, got it. Audrey Forbes Hamilton, good afternoon to you. I hope, Audrey, that the issue that you had, which I've temporarily forgotten, but I know you had an issue yesterday, has been resolved, unless it was was it? I can't remember what it was. Was it something had fizzled out or something? Oh, you lost something, a dog or a cat, or did you find it? I can't remember. Now I feel embarrassed. I shouldn't have mentioned it. Sorry, I'm not laughing at that. Dave over yonder, hello to you. And Cooper68, very nice to see you. And thank you very much for passing by, as opposed to passing out. It's the 4th of February 2021. And it's cold. It's another cold day. Hopefully you can hear me all right, and that we are transmitting. Anne H. Hello, Anne H. How are you? Are you all good? 16:01, and here we are on another Thursday afternoon. So that's all good. Anyway, I'll make a start then. It doesn't seem like we've got the full crowd, but was it? Oh yes, it was not me. Nookie lost a chicken. Oh yes, that's right. That was it. Sometimes it's I don't always fully grasp what's going on in the chat room, as you can imagine. I'm sitting here doing stuff, trying to be entertaining and what have you, and I catch bits of it, and I try to sort of understand. Julia often fills me in with what's been going on. Anyway, we are on chapter 3, which is called William Joins the Show, Steamers to Minehead, We Are Greenhorns. Tuesday began as peacefully as Monday ended. It is true that I was awakened at 5 o'clock by a cow, which tore up the grass, chewed, coughed, sneezed, and grunted its noisy slobbering way all round the tent, and finally fetched me out of my comfortable sleeping bag by gambling through some low bushes on one side and pulling out a side cord of the tent. According to all the comic writers on camping, the nasty, sarcastic people that they are, this should have made me very angry. But I was too pleased with the lovely sight of the glade, of the sun rising behind the beech trees and shooting through the leaves in misty beams to the dewy grass. Some rabbits were nibbling the turf, and all the birds were singing with crazy enthusiasm. The smoke of my wood fire soon rose blue and fragrant, wandering through the surrounding trees, and I breakfasted. There was a new experience confronting the Peep Show today. We were to be joined by William, and for the next week to travel in the classic manner of old with a showman and an outside man. We were also to be joined by William's camping impedimenta, and it would be interesting to see how the old encumbrance was going to adapt itself to a double burden. It was already filled well, and at the colony I had to refuse some generous but large offers of potatoes and cabbages, of pieces of wood for the new puppets, and an enormous antique dagger in a leather sheath, which the owners thought might be an amusing property for the puppets, but which they really wished to get rid of because in ancient days it had committed a murder. That's nice, isn't it? Oh, good afternoon to Steve G, by the way. 23 watching so far, says the lovely Julian. Marvellous. Accordingly, at midday, I was to I'll start that again. Accordingly, at midday, I was at the rendezvous under the larch trees at Paradise, which is not where it used to be when we were at children, but is now on the slopes of Painswick Beacon, just above the Adam and Eve Inn. William was there with a party of friends to picnic with us, and also 2 new puppets, a century-old flageolet, a trumpet to announce the show with, a sleeping sack, a blanket, a ground sheet, a lantern, a fisherman's jersey, but I will only mention the really interesting things, the block of chocolate, the biscuits, the plug of tobacco, and the works of William Shakespeare in 1 volume. We gave an exhibition of lightweight camping and how we were going to fit ourselves into our little tent. We gave a united performance in the Peep show, introducing the 2 new puppets, one a modern long-haired artist and the other a nice old-fashioned countryman in a smock. And of course, we touched our elegant friends for a collection. Our private show was joined by 2 mothers, 2 children and a pram, who settled down comfortably and naturally on the grass. They paid us the compliment of thinking that it was ever so much nicer than an ordinary Punch and Judy show, and that it had nothing vulgar in it. We were interested in the behaviour of these commoners because of 2 old pedants who had strolled into the midst of our picturesque proceedings, surveyed us calmly, and talked pompously about some delightful scene in some new book or other which it had reminded them. And then, in spite of all their learning, they stood some 3 yards from the theatre with their backs to the puppet and talked in loud voices of their friends who all seemed to be suffering from horrible illnesses. They talked in loud voices of their friends who seemed to be suffering in horrible illnesses. This was our first experience of the distractions to be encountered in open-air shows, and we took it on ourselves as a lesson, as a first exercise in becoming steeled against callous public, which interests itself habitually in crime and disease, neglecting the bright and the glorious world of art. The puppets rose to the occasion with ready impudence, one of the company leaning round the proscenium, listening to this conversation and repeating his eavesdroppings to the audience. As a final blow, these 2 old gentlemen were not interested in the collection to which the 2 mothers, the 2 children, and the pram had contributed readily. Ding, says Sir Audrey Forbes. Yes, there was. I did see that picturesque go through. It's become a bit of a comedy theme now, hasn't it? Linda Kane, good afternoon. Late arrival, just finished a big long phone call. Dry throat, must make tea. Linda Kane, thank you very much for your wonderful donation towards the boots, along with Tracy, who's not there as far as I can see. They arrived today, and I've made a video, and it will be out tomorrow, and you'll be able to see the boots. The boots, the boots, my kingdom for the boots. So I hope you enjoy it. So thank you very much, by the way. Martin Cannon says, are you really Penelope Keith? She's to the manor born, don't you know? Absolutely. And Ed Loud, good noonie afters ye all, a few minutes behind, hope you're well. Yes, very well, thank you. Wonderful. I bet I'm the only one who noticed Audrey, says Martin Cannon. No, actually, Audrey's been watching for a long time, and other people have commented that Audrey Forbes Hamilton is a character from To the Manor Born. But we don't mind. Non-day plumes are very welcome, especially if they hark back to jolly good television times. You can call me Norman Stanley Fletcher, if you so wish. Norman Stanley Fletcher. No, it was more like this, wasn't it? Norman Stanley Fletcher. That was more like it was. Anyway, enough of that. Andrew Norris isn't here to tell us to move on, so that's lucky. Anyway, the packing that evening presented some problems. We got the new puppets and their properties into the puppet box, and into the camping box we squashed the sleeping sacks, the blankets, the chocolate, and all the precious things to be kept dry. And when William explained to me with tears in his eyes that he had brought the works of William Shakespeare in one volume when he was 3 years old, and that he'd been meaning to read it ever since, and that he'd always carried it with him wherever he went, and that he thought just that quiet, calm opportunity had presented itself at last, we found room for that too. Oh, I thought it was going to say you didn't find any room for it. You had to sling it away over a hedge. But no, they found room for it. The rest of the junk we piled on top of the boxes, covered it with the ground sheet and strapped it down, which made our conveyance look like a camel, more like a camel than a Punch and Judy show. William's discreet amount of baggage so satisfactorily disposed of, a new question arose. Would he pull? After our journey that evening, I was ashamed that such an idea could have come into my head, for William was like a boy with a new toy. He must be in the shafts all the time trying to do the pulling. We travelled to the edge of the Cotswolds, where we camped, looking down on the glistening Severn, winding its way through a misty panorama of the sea, in which direction we had decided to travel the next morning. Linda Kane's back. I bet you missed Linda Kane. I thanked you very much for the boots. I thanked you for the boots, and I bet you missed all that. I was saying how marvellous you were. But you've missed it now. I'm not doing it again. It never occurred to us that it might have been a wet day the following day, and we trundled our affair down the hill to the plain with never a word of thanks for the glorious morning. By 11 o'clock we had reached the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal. And here we sat down on the bank and waited. The object of our waiting soon came puffing round the bend of the canal, approached gracefully, and hove to at the bridge. Lifting our cabriolet, we hauled it over the railings of this river steamer. We stepped on board ourselves, lashed the show down firmly, and was soon jogging along the placid waters of the canal through the low country around the River Severn. The boatman recognised us at once as a Punch and Judy show and found a job for us at a Sunday school treat being held somewhere down the canal that afternoon. But we were intent upon pushing forward to the sea. We were fired with the gay idea of getting a tramp steamer at the port of Sharpness, not Sharpness. It's silly. There's no place as Sharpness, which would drop us somewhere in Devon or Cornwall, where, amongst the holiday people, we would find large audiences and soon enrich ourselves with enormous collections. So it's quite interesting because he's started off with this sort of very commercial idea, and yet by the time he reaches Sussex in another book, which we read before, he's dropped this whole idea of going into large conurbations where there are people and wants to stay in very remote villages where he's unlikely to find two or three. So it's interesting to see how he, before we met him, it's almost like this is the, the foreshadowing of the one we've read, what do they call it in the movies? The backstory. It's like the backstory. Linda says, you're very welcome, kind sir. Hope your choice was the right one. Well, tomorrow, as I mentioned earlier when you were making your tea, I've made a video. They arrived today. I made a video about it, and you'll be able to see it tomorrow, and hopefully you will approve. What ho, says Andrew Norris. Oh, no more slacking. We have to get our eyes down and get onto that nose grind. You know what I mean? Nose grind. Nose grind. Sorry, let's have some more of this pink gin. Oh, there goes that tooth. Where the hell was I? Oh yes. Already we began to pay for our wicked ambition to get rich, for the port of Sharpness was not at all romantic, and we found ourselves pulling the puppets over rusting cables and railway lines, along cinder paths, among ramshackle offices and untidy lumber yards. We had just missed a boat for Bristol, and as for Devon and Cornwall, something might turn up if we waited a month or two. William's enthusiasm for anything in the way of a ship led us to 2 boats which were settled down to unload. It was just such a boat as that, he said, we wanted, but my secret thoughts at the time were that they looked very dirty, untidy places, and that the crews were more rough than amusing. And the bloaters and tea and swearing would be the diet. Oh, and that, bloaters. What's a bloater? What is a bloater? B-L-O-A-T-E-R-S, a bloater. That's like a real good old sort of slang word, I imagine. In the meantime, a sailorman was walking round and round our conveyance, studying it intently, and he decided, finally, that it was a Punch and Judy show, that they were very good wheels, and that we were properly boxed in. There being no hope of a boat at Sharpness, we pulled through the town out onto the Bristol road, and partly by walking and partly by train, we arrived at Mangotsfield on a showery evening. Here we got permission to camp for the night, and leaving our precious belongings in a cart shed of the farm, we took the train to Bristol to investigate the shipping affairs. But arranged nothing more romantic than to go to Minehead by the ordinary passenger boat in the morning. Type of herring, is it? Type of herring, a bloater, is it? Yes. After a good night on the heights of Mangotsfield, with plenty of new-mown hay for our bed and a good breakfast on a haycock in the morning in the open, we got into Bristol and began to negotiate a real city with our vehicle. We were too possessed with our dream of the future, of the romance of Devon and Cornwall, to think of showing in ordinary places like Bristol, and we made directly for Hotwells and the boats. And as we pulled past the cathedral down towards the river, the old encumbrance rattled pleasantly. As our vehicle danced its way over the cobbles, and we got visions of ships' riggings and spars in between the houses, after passing ships' inns and anchor inns, and a rope shop or two, William's sailor soul awoke, which set him singing the Watch It, Sailor. Watch It, Sailor. Is that a song? Must be. The watch it, sailor, sailed the seas. The watch it, sailor, sailed. The watch it, sailor, sailed the seas. And he fell down on his knees. On his knees he fell, on his knees he fell. He had a jolly good sneeze. The watch it, sailor, sailed the seas. He sailed the 7 seas. For the absence of the lyrics of the Watch It Sailor, I propose they might be close. Anyway. Oh, that was a bit of fun, wasn't it? Somebody's going to clip that out now and put that on the group. I know what people are like. They will just take that out and go, here's Vobe singing. He's been drinking on the old pink gin. The old pink gin, the old pink... Oh. If only it was pink. Anyway, yes, we set... he saw all these things. It's the William Sailor soul awoke, which set him singing the Watch It Sailor, until we rounded a corner and came out onto the River Avon, to find ourselves confronted with the deep rocky gorge and the famous Suspension Bridge, which come upon suddenly like that. Which come upon suddenly like that seems to touch the sky. What are you saying, you cheeky people? Watch it is near Minehead. Oh, is it? Oh, right. Thank you, Justine. Watch it is near Minehead. So it's a watch it sailor is the sailor from Minehead. I knew that. It was in the lyrics. Did you not hear it? The watch it sailor from Minehead, from Minehead, from Minehead. The watch it sailor from Minehead. He sails every day. Anyway, at the embarking stage, we were treated like royalty. A gate was opened for us, and we were conducted to the boat long before the queue of waiting passengers. Such a friend of one and all is old Punch, and the blue-jerseyed sailorman. Such a friend of one and all is old Punch, that the blue-jerseyed sailorman sprang into life at the sight of us, and behaving like Gilbert and Sullivan chorus, they flung out the special gangway with jocular cries of "Here comes Punch! Here comes Punch! Make room for Punch and Judy!" I don't know whether he was singing, actually. Perhaps he was bellowing. "Are you going to give us a show?" Or, there's down in Bristol, isn't it? I forgot it was in Bristol. There's down there the water. The water. Are you going to give us a show then there? Is that what you're going to do there? Is give us a show? They lifted the vehicle on board. There were 6 or 7 of them, carried it tenderly under the hatches and lashed it to the mast with a brotherly interest, but alarmed us at the end by saying, "There's this very good, that's all nice then, that's all tucked up there then, that's lovely. There'll be 7 and 6pence extra then, thank you." What? 7 and 6pence extra, thank you. 7 and 6pence? That's right. Yes, indeed. 7 and 6pence. And if you don't pay us now, we'll throw you overboard. There was a vague idea in our minds of doing a show to the passengers, but as soon as we had cleared Key Haven and were out of the Avon, the movement of the boat and the strong wind soon dispelled that notion. So we settled down to enjoy our trip, with the sun shining down on us and the spray breaking over us. We reached Minehead in the afternoon and disembarked the old encumbrance ourselves, which was no mean adventure, for we had to shoulder it down the unstable gangways with the cold, cruel waves lashing below us, and then we had to carry it up a slippery iron staircase to the higher deck of the pier, and our exhaustion was complete by having to pay 4pence to get off the pier. Now, there's 4pence to get off the pier there, sir, if you don't mind, thank you. You can, of course, jump off and swim ashore, but 4pence to pass the gate. Thank you. There was an urge within us to be professional. We were rather ashamed of travelling in a respectable passenger boat like holidaymakers, but we were a little reconciled by the numbers of buskers with violins, guitars, mandolins and banjos who had disembarked at the various points of call. We were determined to get to work as soon as possible and consequently begin our campaign in Minehead by having a good and comfortable tea. By the time we had reached the promenade, we'd discussed the possibilities of performing with the young girl who served us with tea, with the postman, with a distinguished grey-bearded gentleman, and with several boys. Oh, I see, performing with. What, performing with them? They discussed a question quite seriously. A show had been seen on the promenade some years ago, and as the photograph man and the buskers took up a stand there, the good people saw no reason why we shouldn't do the same. The promenade widened out in the centre and was planted with trees. By its very structure, it invited a performer and a crowd, and by putting up the Peep show under one of the trees, we supplied just the right artistic touch. We looked round nervously for a policeman or some interfering official, but there was none in sight. A few children spread the news for us. "Come and see the Punch and Judy show. Come and see the Punch and Judy show." William blew rousing blasts on his twopenny trumpet, or tuppenny trumpet, and John Barleycorn. There we are, Andrew Norris is so happy now. The name that is his soul has been mentioned. And John Barleycorn poked his head out of the front, the sides and the back of the theatre, announcing that we were about to begin. Remember that scene? We must put that in our little video. That would be a good little scene. We get some kids running around. Come see Punch Judy! Punch Judy! Did I ever tell you about the time I worked with some clowns called the Europa Clowns? And they had a clown show, and I was working as a corporate entertainer at this family fun day. And they'd set up their little tent, and they were going to do this comedy show called, they just had this sign saying, the Europa Clowns. Come and see the Europa Clowns. And Nigel Cooper and I were there as two entertainers, and I was juggling and what have you. But Mike Bomfield, who was one of the Europa Clowns, came up to me and said, any chance you could help get us a crowd? I said, yeah, we'll get them. So we were outside the front doing exactly that, the sort of hawking thing. Come and see the clowns, ropey old clowns, come and see the ropey old clowns. So we were doing this. Ropey old clowns, come and see the ropey old clowns. And Mike just came out and he looked at us and then he looked at the sign and we looked at the sign and I was going, come and see the ropey old clowns. Come and see the Europa Clowns, Europa Clowns. Come and see, would you like to see the Europa Clowns? And as soon as Mike went back inside the tent, ropey old clowns, come and see the ropey old clowns. We thought it was funny. We didn't work for him for very long. Andrew Norris has made a mental note. Don't trust that Vobes. It's very wise. I've lost my space now. The boys were running around doing all this. William blew his whistle. Yes, and John Barleycorn poked his head out. That's right. A small crowd gathered from which William collected while I went through the performance. And then we changed positions, William performing whilst I took another collection. As soon as I appeared, a little Cockney chap came up to me in a very knowing manner and sarcastically said, I don't know if you're doing this benevolently or for a living, but your pal missed a lot of collection, those and those. And here he waved his hands to some people about 100 yards away sitting with their backs to the theatre. Oh, but I said, greenhorn that I was, they can't see the show. He looked at me with a mixture of incredulity and scorn, while an amused smile spread over his sharp features. Can't see the show? He repeated mockingly after me. What you want to do is get round with that hat because what you want to do is why can't I read a simple line and ruin the whole joke? What you want to do is to get round with that hat because you know you are working hard. That's clever work what you're doing, and you don't want to do it for nothing. You want to get round with your hat because that's what is it? What you want to do is get round with that hat because you know you're working hard. That's clever work what you're doing, and you don't want to do it for nothing. In fact, you needn't work for a living at all. In fact, you needn't work for your living at all if you knew anything about the road, but you're green. I could see that as soon as I saw you. All you want to do is make a bit of noise on an instrument. That's quite enough. Oh, I see. It's being sarcastic and truthful. All you want to do... Oh, I'm getting it now. See, if you don't read in advance, you have no idea quite the sentiment that they're saying. All you want to do is make a bit of noise on that instrument. That's quite enough. You must have a smart collector, though, one who don't miss anything. Here, give us the old hat. I'll go round if you like. Well, I didn't like that. I haughtily refused this professional example and went round myself. I was nervous and confused and did not look closely at the people to whom I presented the hat until being surprised by one individual who shouted out very loudly, "Oh yes, certainly, oh yes, of course." I discovered that I had extracted a donation from the very man who was seeking to teach me the art of collecting. Yes, I see. I was just trying to work that back bit out in my head. So what he was saying is, can't see your show? What you want to do is get round with that hat, because you know you're working hard. That's clever work you're doing, and you don't have to do it for nothing. In fact, you don't need to work. So in other words, you're saying you don't have to do as much, is what I was taking from that. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to over-extrapolate that. Yes, as we were packing up the show, he appeared again, with a bohemian companion carrying a mandolin on his back, and evidently fearing our rivalry, they tried to pump us as to our plans, advising us to go into the villages about here, where we would do much better than in Mindhead. But then the photograph while you wait man entered the discussion, and in the foulest of language and at the top of his house shouted, "You stay here, mate. This place is a gold mine. You've got a good thing here. I wish I had it. The old-fashioned thing is going to be coming. The old-fashioned thing is going to be the coming thing. Yeah, that is it. That's it. The old is going to be the new. You stick to this place, mate. It's a gold mine. I've been here for 5 years, and I hope I'll be here for another 5. It's a gold mine. You stick at it, and I dare say I can put you in touch with the right people." Oh, see, so in other words, the other bloke was trying to get him to go to the villages where he would get him off the thing, and him and his mate with the mandolin could try and clean up. I got it. We begin to feel that Punch and Judy, showing in Minehead, was a real serious business with opposition to encounter. Our collection had been wrestled from the buskers, and we felt their envy upon us. If we had to stay here all season, we would be condemned to a career of plot and intrigue, a gruesome affair of hard business. And as we packed up our sticks and loaded up the old encumbrance, we experienced a great feeling of liberty at being able to pack up like this and fly from the swearing photograph man and the frowning buskers. As we pulled away from the promenade, they got to work again, and we were followed by the sound of violin playing and "Photographs! Photographs! Who's next then? 3 for a bob. That's my price. Come and get it. Photograph. Would you like your photographs, madam? Please don't get too close and crack the lens. How about you, sir? Would you like... You might have to crouch down. You're a rather tall fellow. This is only 3 by 4. What do you think we do? 10 by 8? 10 by 8, 10 bob a go. 10 bob a go for 10 by 8. They're the old days, aren't they? We spent our collection in the Minehead shops and set out to find a camping site. About 2 miles from the town, we came to a scrubby place with a cottage nearby. And here, after pulling our bus up the steep bank and rocking it over the clumps of heather, we pitched the tent and enjoyed a good supper, provided for us by our exertions in the town. I love that description. We came to a scrubby place. This is a bit of a scrubby place, isn't it? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Bit of a scrubby old place, isn't it? I love that. It's so good. Richard, you are buffering and I'm putting you on 360 resolution. Oh, am I buffering? I'm so sorry about that. I worked at a firm that had a family day circus. Next morning, they had laid off 600 of us. Good God. That's awful, isn't it? Then off to Butlins for a show, says Edward Moulding. Oh, it's Minehead. There's a Butlins at Minehead, isn't there? I've not been in there. I've been to Minehead, but I've not been into Butlins. Julia says, Joseph has just been awoken from his nap, began dancing with joy and singing, Richard. Oh, good. Oh, woken up by my singing. Oh, I do beg your pardon. No buffering here. No buffering with you. So, sorry, Martin. It just seems to be you that's buffering. I will try not to buffer. Yes, anyway, that's it. A friendly woman passed us on her way home to the cottage, and we mentioned that we had got water from her husband at the cottage. Without the least embarrassment, she explained to us the true state of affairs. I ain't got no husband. He's my intended. I took in him and a friend about 2 years ago, and we got friendly like, and now he wants to marry me, but I don't know. I've had one, you see, and now I'm my own master, and when I've got 6pence to spend, I spend it. I took upon myself to recommend him as a nice, decent chap. Oh, yes, she agreed in a very Irene Handel voice. Oh, yes, he's very willing and useful about the garden and the house and that, but I think he'll have to wait a bit. Well, good night, young men. I'm sure I hope you'll have a good night. It's a healthy life, anyhow, plenty of fresh air. After our varied day of travelling by train and by 2 steamers and tramping by road, and after the excitement, not to mention the hard work of performing in Minehead, we were very pleased with our quiet camp on the hillside overlooking the valley and the rising downs beyond. We pottered about our jobs until the moon rose, and the bright stars appeared silently in the clear sky, and then we crawled into our tent all on 4s and lit our lantern. We sat side by side in our respective sleeping bags, with our heads touching the roof of the tent, our backs against the end, and our feet at the door. There was no room left even for a puppet. We completely filled the tent. We were snug. "Ho, ho," said William. "This is all right, my boys. Have a piece of chocolate." "Ha, ha," said I. "I like this. I would rather be here than in one of those lodging rooms among the iron railings and pavements of Minehead." "Rather," agreed William. "This is better than a stuffy interior. I can't stand those furnished rooms which look like a nightmare on a hire system." "Yes," said I. "And here we are free of all those screaming advertisements of teas, those hysterical announcements of beastly charabancs trips, and those altogether ever so much too important advertisements for motor spirit." "Why," said William, "we live in a poem. Out here on the moonlit hillside among the foxgloves and bracken, we enjoy the experience of living like romantic mountebanks in a picture." Is it mountebanks? Mountebank. Is it mountebank? Mountebank? Mountebank. Here he pulled out his ancient flageolet and began piping sweet Elizabethan airs, whilst I searched the box for the interesting works of William Shakespeare in a volume. To read them or not to read them, that was the question. Oh dear no. I wanted to mend a large hole in one of my socks, and I remembered that when packing I had seen the darning wool just under the volume. Presently we settled down to sleep, while outside in the moonlight a wandering nightjar serenaded us. Inside the tent we breathed the fresh, fragrant air with thyme and lady's bedstraw, on clumps of which we had made our beds. It was not long before William began to snore, a thing which I never do myself. How are we doing? 36 minutes to. That's the end of the next chapter. I don't want to rush these chapters. We're on chapter 4. How are we doing? Flageolet. Flagiolet. Flagiolet. Is that how it is pronounced? Flagiolet. Flagiolet.
Flagiolet.
But which Lego model? What? Which Lego model? Oh, Linda's taken it off. It's not Flagiolet. Flagiolet, flagiolet, flag, flag, flagiolet, wave my flag. Oh, wait, it's back again. Flage. Oh, is it? Flagiolet. Hey, I apply my flagiolet. Was that the ice cream seller there? Did he just suddenly come by? Get off my cornet. That snoring needed echo reverb. Was that not echo reverb? I don't know what reverb I've got here, actually. I've got some delay. What about delay? I can't hear it myself. That's the trouble, you see. I put it on. Can't hear it. Drink of water. What's that, Andrew? Stop waffling. Chapter 4, ladies and gentlemen. Chapter 4. In Porlock, the puppet scenes. We came out of our tents in the morning to find a bright world all around us again. It is a great event to crawl out of one's tent in the morning like that. We didn't have to hurry our breakfast, or run after a train, or worry a landlady for sandwiches before we could get into the wilds of nature. We were already there, in the first crystal clearness of the morning, and as the flowers unfolded their petals and the bushes uncurled their leaves, we polished ourselves up with soap and water and set our breakfast on to cook. We packed up in not too great a hurry, for there, beneath the magic touch of nature, in the quiet, warm morning, we took our time from, and marched with, the elements, with the slow rolling clouds, the swaying trees, and all the little movements of the grasses and flowers. These gentle rhymes brought us by degrees down to the road, where we trundled along beneath the mighty trees of oak and ash which tower above the winding road, making its way under the downs from Minehead to Porlock. "This is fine," exclaimed William, who was cutting along between the shafts, already, after 2 days, an accomplished vagabond. "I should like to live like this if I could carry a few more things with me. Some carving tools, a turning lathe, a bathroom, and a bed, a chest or two of books, and, of course, my friends. And I should like tramping about the roads and the country, especially if I had nothing to pull or push and nothing to carry." As we wandered along among the rolling hills, we made our plans for the day and accomplished the first of them by arriving in Porlock before the carpenter had closed his workshop for the weekend. Here we bought some long wooden battens and screws, as we had decided to screw up the framework of the theatre permanently and travel with it ready for use, so that we could strike up a performance in as little time as possible. The carpenter expressed his admiration for Punch and Judy shows, and hoped that we would perform in the town. In return, I expressed my admiration for his carpentry, and said that I rather envied him. "I would rather have your job," he said, "to get out and about from one place to another instead of being stuck in this workshop for 10 hours a day, year in, year out. Yes, you do a show in Porlock this evening. The band will be about at 8:30, and if I were you, I should get in a show or two before them, about 7. I shall come along and have a look." We decided to adopt his advice, and after some wondering and waiting, we got a pitch for a tent in a meadow between the town and the sea. Here we spent the afternoon in carpentry and eating until it was time to get into the town with the show. We'd been advised to interview the policeman. He had been recommended to us as a good sort, so we were not so nervous as we might have been, especially when we found him at his cottage in his shirt sleeves. We mentioned to him the discreet place, well away from the traffic of the narrow high street, where we had thought of pitching the theatre, but like the carpenter, he began to arrange affairs for us. "Now, if you goes higher up the street," he must have been from up north, he said, "you'll get more people like. They'll all be out there this evening. And if you were to go up outside Castle Hotel, now look here, sir, if I were you, I should speak to the landlord there. He's a good sort, and I'll let you, and I lay he'll let you set up outside his piece there. That's it. You go up along and ask ye." There was a kindness about this suggestion which we could not resist, and we soon pulled up to the Castle Hotel and asked for permission. The landlord entered into the affair with spirit. "What? Do a Punch and Judy show? Boy, yes, certainly, wherever you like. And good luck and have a good living to you." He sent out a boy to show us, to a hair's breadth, the very best stand that we could take, and there, accordingly, we set up the theatre. It was not long before curious eyes were upon us, and passers-by halted in their promenade. We caught several housewives with their prams and babies out for a Saturday shopping. Sober workmen leaned up against the opposite fencing, smoking their pipes. Several groups of promenading flappers took the stand before us, arm in arm, and consequently the young bloods were pulled up too. Children clamoured around us, wanting to know how much it was to pay, and the simple, generous-minded ones rushed off to get pennies, while the horrid, clever ones hung on to see it for nothing. Once one boy offered us a penny on the spot, but William took his pipe out of his mouth, refused the coin, and uttered that honest slogan, "Work first, pay afterwards." With the first notes of the squeaky music, someone in the audience began to laugh. At the first appearance of John Barleycorn, the children gave a wild shout, and when Martha, his wife, looked out of her window and then fell out, the whole audience was captured and guffawed in unison. Through a hole in the curtains I could see a smiling crowd entirely blocking up the high street, and as the performance proceeded, I could hear the pleasant sound of pennies clinking into the bag as William went the rounds. By this time the show had settled down into a routine. The second scene was a boxing match in 3 thrilling rounds with Uncle Joe and the monkey, with the adopted name of Joe Beckett and Siki, the 2 boxing heroes of the moment. There was... Oh, I see, they must have been real people then. Joe Beckett and Siki. There was never a dull moment. There was never a moment's doubt as to who was going to win the fight. The monkey was the idol of the crowd. In the second round, he rallies. He bumps Joe's head against the proscenium. He butts him with his head and finally attacks him with an umbrella, which mischievous is American, isn't it? Mischievous is English. Which mischievous tactics so pleased the boys that they began to yell such encouragement as, "Go, monkey! Go, monkey! I'm a monkey! Look out, monkey! The monkey's going to win! The monkey's going to win! Hey-ho, every-ho, the monkey's going to win!" Influenced by these inspiring shouts, the boxers became very excited, knocking a good deal of paint off each other, and Joe Beckett retired, leaving half one of his wooden ears in the village street. For the third turn, John Barleycorn produced his magic chest, which has come from Egypt out of Tutankhamun's tomb.
I think it's in here.
In here?
Yeah, look. There, the magic box. The magic chest. In Egypt. Tutankhamun. Let's go get it. There it is.
A little flashback to getting the chest. By the incantation of a magic formula, it has the magic of transmuting old and worthless articles into bags of gold or diamonds or something equally precious and desirable. He is a man of his word, this John Barleycorn, and sceptical of this sort of fairy tale magic, but, all the same, he thinks he may as well experiment a little, so he puts a bonnet belonging to his wife into the magic chest and pronounces the ancient Egyptian formula. I chi chi chickaroli onni, nicka picka oo, nicka dicka owl, nicka ball a cannonball, Chinese crew. Apparently that is it's written in words just there, look. He opens the box and is excited to find that a change has been wrought, that in place of the bonnet there is a cheque or a banknote or something. He pulls out the paper, spreads it on the board to read it, and is disgusted to find that the genie has presented him with a bill for the bonnet which he has neglected to pay. He stuffs the bill back and thinks that he will try it again. This time he tries his luck with a bell belonging to Peep, and in return gets a large human sock with a big hole in it. There is nothing very witty or subtle in that idea, I will confess, but at the same time it made the people of Porlock laugh. And what effect could a showman wish for better than that? But John Barleycorn did not laugh. He was disappointed. He thinks, however, a third time he might be lucky. And as he has an empty bottle by him, and what use is an empty bottle anyway, he puts it into the chest. This time the genie is apparently kinder, and John pulls out of the box an enormous black bottle, which he hugs, kisses and dances, and drinks from. But in the end is punished for, by doing so, by Mickey, the genie, who pulls him head first into the chest and shuts the lid with a grim snap. This concluded my part of the show, and then I changed places with William. And after waiting a little for the change of audience, his puppets began their performance, and I took my turn at the collecting. But first of all I became one of the audience. I tried to imagine myself a native of Porlock, and that I had just seen the Peep Show for the first time. That is one of the tragedies of a puppet showman. After all his hard work, he can never see his own performance. I think we'll pause there. That's probably a good place to pause, although there is a chance to get to the end of the chapter, but we are running slow on time. I think we'll just pause there. I think that's quite a nice place to pause, and we will pick it up from where we went. Let's have a look. Up the hill and down the hill, I wonder, says Linda Kane. I absolutely love the different voices and accents Richard does. Really brings the reading. Thank you very much. I do my best. I fully agree, says Turbo Stream. Yes, makes all the difference. Much fun. Ben Reeve says the A39 is one of my favourite roads in Porlock. I've not been to Porlock. Is that where the Morlocks live? The Morlocks from H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, of course. And the North Devon Somerset area. The nearby Valley of the Rocks roads were more a squeaky burn experience with big open doors to the Bristol Channel. Is that right? Ed Loud says, leaving an ear behind, was the other boxer a Mike Tyson puppet then? Could have been, that's true. So there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed it. Another marvellous hour of storytelling. Thank you so much, Turbo. It is a good book. So much depends on the book, doesn't it? You've seen me struggle with books in which I cannot get a grip on. And if I struggle, then I can't bring it to life. But I do enjoy a good read. Especially, there's moments, as you saw, when I haven't quite fathomed what it is that they're trying to get to, or, because I don't know, just have those moments within the hour. But we get there in the end and we sort of muddle through it, don't we? I would love to, if I had the time and the inclination to really, work on a book and get all the characters and have different voices and all of that. It would be lovely to do a story in which you could and then have sound effects coming in and really do it well, but you couldn't do it live. It would have to be pre-recorded. But anyway, another wonderful round. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anne H. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good rest of the day, everyone, and see you on the morrow. Indeed, yes. I will. I've got a video to just finish off. It's finished. Just got to check it. And then I've got something else to do this evening. I can't remember what it is. I must go to the supermarket as well. But anyway, that's all my problems. Thank you so much. It's been lovely to be here to entertain you all and get you through all these miserable days. There is a new boot video coming tomorrow. Hopefully you will enjoy it. In the meantime, arrivederci Thank you for arriving. Take care and look after yourself. Fairly enjoyed the reading this afternoon. Excellent. Excellent. Right. I will leave you in peace. And like the genie, he said, poof!